Okay, so we're going to take a look at our parallel perpendicular lines quiz practice problems. So what I'm going to do, I'll go through the left side problems first. These are all the parallel ones. And then I'll do the ones on the right side, which are all the perpendicular ones. So if you want to skip ahead and do perpendicular, you can. And just fast forward to any particular problem that you need. But I'll go through each one of them for you. So starting with this first one, write an equation of a line that is parallel to y equals 2x minus 5 and pass it through the point 2, 6. Okay, so the equation of a line that's parallel to this. Now, parallel means the same slope. And according to this equation has a slope of 2. So when I write my answer, y equals, I'm going to write my equation of a line, my answer is going to have the same slope because parallel means the same slope. So it's also going to have a slope of 2. So it's going to be 2x plus b. Now, I'm writing plus b because I don't know what the y-intercept is. You can tell that in the original problem, the y-intercept is -5. But that's really meaningless to me because my equation is going to be a different equation. So I don't know what my b value is. I don't know what my y-intercept value is. But I do know that the slope is 2. So how to find out what the b value is we're going to use this point that's provided for us. It goes to the point 2, 6. 2 is an x value, 6 is a y value, and I can plug these in to my x and y values in this equation and solve for b. So let's do that. 6 is going to be the y. I'm going to plug the 6 in for the y. And I'm going to plug the other 2 in for the x. Now remember, I'm not plugging anything in for b because I don't know what b is. But when I go to evaluate, I have 6 equal to 2 times 2, which is 4, plus b. So essentially it's 4 plus b. And then if we want to quickly solve this, we can subtract the 4 on both sides and end up with 6 minus 4, which is 2. So our b value is 2. So now I know what the b value is. I can put it back in my equation, in my answer. And my final answer is going to be y equals 2x plus 2. Remember, this 2 here is from the slope. We knew that from the beginning. But the b value I just got, I put in, and we have our answer. So now let's look at the next parallel one. So this one takes a little bit more work because I don't know what the slope is of this equation. It's not written in the right format. I can't tell just by looking at it what the slope is. So what we're going to have to do is actually start by rearranging this equation to get the y by itself. Put this equation in slope-intercept form. At that point, we'll be able to see the slope and go from there. So to put it in slope-intercept form, we're first going to move the 3x term. So since it's positive 3x, I'm going to subtract 3x. 3x minus 3x ends up being 0, right? Canceling that out. So on the left side, it's just 2y. On the right side, I have the -3x and 6, so it's -3x plus 6. And it's plus 6 because that 6 is a positive number. Now I got to divide by 2. Divide by 2. So now I have the y by itself. Y is equal to -3 over 2x plus 3. So now that it's in slope-intercept form, I can see what my slope is. My slope is the -3 over 2. So since our line is parallel, remember, we're trying to make an equation of a line that's parallel. Parallel will have the same slope. So my equation will have the exact same slope, which will be -3 over 2. It's just a problem. My equation, again, I don't have the b value. I don't know what that number is I can plug in. That's the only thing that's missing. But I do know that my slope will be the same. So if the original equation had a slope of -3 over 2, that my equation will have the same slope of -3 over 2. But we're going to do what we did in the last problem, which is plug in the x value and the y value that's given to us by this point, and then solve for b. So 2 is y. I got my slope, -3 over 2. X is 4, and plus b. Now, when I work this out in my head, I think about how these numbers go together. 2 goes into 4 twice. 2 goes into 4 twice, essentially making this right here 2, and then I multiply it with the numerator -3, and 2 times -3 would be -6. So this is 2 equal to -6 plus b. And then we, of course, quickly just add the 6 to the other side, and I have 8 is equal to b. So now that I know 8 is equal to b, I can put that in my answer, and my answer would be y equals -3 over 2x plus 8. All right, we have another parallel one. This one is already written so that we know the slope. The slope of this line is -3. Remember, parallel means same slope. So when I write my equation will have the same slope. It will also be -3. So -3x plus b. But just again, all these problems have that same thing in common. What is this b value, right? We don't know. We only know what our slope is. We plug in the x and the y that we're given, and we find out what the b value is. So the y is 1. The x value is 2. And I'm getting that from this point over here, plus b. So we're going to solve this for b. So when I evaluate, this is going to be 1 is equal to, now -3 times 2 is -6, plus b, and then we'll add the 6 to move it over. So that means that 7 is equal to b. So since 7 is b, I'm going to plug that back in and have my final answer. So my final answer is y equals -3x plus 7. And then our last parallel one takes a lot of rearranging. We have this equation. Of course, you don't know what the slope is just by looking at that. So we are going to have to rearrange it a bit. So we have 3y minus 2x plus 6 equals 0. The first thing I'll do is move the 6. So I'll subtract that 6 to kind of move it to the other side. That leaves me 3y minus 2x equal to -6. Okay, so remember, I'm trying to get y by itself. So the next thing I'm going to move is the 2x term. So I'm going to add the 2x, because that's the opposite of a -2x, and cancel it out and move to the other side. So this means that now I have 3y on the left, and then I have positive 2x, and then -6 on the right, so 2x minus 6. And then last but not least, I need to just divide by 3. And I have my result, y is equal to 2/3 x minus 2. 6 divided by 3 is 2. But that part doesn't really matter. The thing I'm only interested in is the slope. So our slope is 2/3. Remember, I'm writing a parallel line, so parallel line will have the same slope. So my equation will also have a slope of 2/3. But remember, again, I do not know what the y-intercept is. I don't know what the b value is. So I leave it as b. I plug in the x and the y that I'm given, the 0 for the y and the 1 for the x. And then I look in trying to solve b. So when I evaluate this, yes, we have a fraction, but it's not too bad. 2/3 times 1 is 2/3. So that makes 2/3 plus b. And if I want to simply get rid of this 2/3 to get the b by itself, I'm just going to subtract 2/3, right? Because 2/3 minus 2/3 will be 0, and it will disappear, just leaving me with b. And on the left-hand side, this could be worse, right? But it's 0 minus 2/3. There could be harder problems to solve. That is going to be just a -2/3. So I know that b is -2/3, which means I can put it in my answer, making my final answer y equals 2/3 x minus 2/3. All right, so now let's move on to the perpendicular lines. So perpendicular, the process is very much the same, except you just have to figure out what the slope is. Now, the slope of the original line is -2, but my line will have the opposite reciprocal of -2. It won't be -2, my slope. My slope won't be -2. The opposite reciprocal of -2 is +1/2. Because remember, opposite reciprocal, think of -2 as -2/1. The opposite reciprocal makes that negative a positive and flips the fraction upside down, making the 1 on top and 2 on bottom. So therefore, I have a +1/2. This will be the slope of my line. So my line will be y equals 1/2 x. But remember, again, I don't know b. It's not going to be the same one that we started with that +4. Right? It's going to be a new y-intercept. It's going to be a new number. So same process though. X is a 4, y is 2. And so we're going to plug those in. So we're going to plug the 2 in for the y. We're going to plug 4 in for the x. And then solve for b. Now we do have a fraction, but this is okay. I mean, half of 4, this could be harder. Half of 4 is 2. So we have 2 is equal to 1/2 of 4, that's 2 plus b. And so when I subtract 2, we end up with 0 equal to b. So I can plug that back in and have my final answer. My final answer being y equals 1/2 x plus 0, or just leave it as 1/2 x. That's fine, since plus 0 is kind of redundant. Okay, 1 second. All right. The next one, write an equation of a line that is perpendicular to 4x plus 2y equals 8 that passes through the point 6, 2. So again, we have to do a little bit of work to figure out what the slope of this line is first, and then do the opposite reciprocal of that slope. So that line, we have 4x plus 2y equals 8. We have to solve this for y and figure out what the slope is. So first thing I'm going to do is move the 4x. So I'm going to subtract 4x. That leaves me with 2y equal to negative 4x plus 8. And then we just divide by 2. We have divided by 2. We end up with y is equal to, all right, now negative 4 divided by 2 is negative 2. So that's negative 2x, and 8 divided by 2 is 4. But again, I don't really care about the y-intercept. My interest is the slope. The slope here is negative 2. So the opposite reciprocal of that, was that the same one? Yeah, it's the same one. Okay, the opposite reciprocal of negative 2 is 1/2. So my line, since it's perpendicular, remember that's the whole reason. If it was parallel, then I would just keep the slope the same. My slope would also be negative 2. But if it's perpendicular, I have to do the opposite reciprocal of that slope, and the opposite reciprocal of negative 2 is 1/2. So my equation will have that slope of 1/2. So my equation is y equals 1/2 x plus b. And remember, you don't ever know what this b value is right away. You have to plug the point in to find out what the b value is. So we're going to plug 6 in for x and the 2 in for y. So this is going to be 2 equals 1/2 times 6 plus b. Now, 1/2 of 6 is 3. So this is, this is 2 equals 3 plus b. And then subtract 3 on both sides. This ends up to be negative 1 equal to b. So I could plug that in and have my final answer. My final answer would be y equals 1/2 x minus 1. And then one more perpendicular line to go. So we already know the slope here. The slope is 2/3. Now remember, perpendicular means opposite reciprocal. So the opposite reciprocal of 2/3 would be a negative 3/2. So this is going to be the slope of my line. So my line is y equals negative 3/2x plus b. And so again, plug the x and y values in and solve for b. So y is 2. There's my slope. The x value is 2. And then we solve for b. Now, when you're doing this fraction here, it kind of can be tough at first, but 2 goes into 2 one time. So essentially think of that as just 1. And then multiply that with the numerator of negative 3. 1 times negative 3 is negative 3. So that whole fraction mess is really just negative 3 plus b. So simple enough, add 3 to cancel it out. And we have our final answer that 5 is equal to b. So we can plug that back in for b and make my final answer, which is y equals negative 3/2x plus 5. There you go. That's everything that you're going to need to know. Hopefully you guys do well. Good luck. I'll see you guys later. Have a good day.